I am not African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. Action without thought is empty. Thought without action is blind. It is clear that we must find an African solution to our problems, and that this can only be found in African unity. Divided, we are weak. United, Africa will become one of the greatest forces for good in the world. Those who would judge us merely by the heights we have achieved would do well to remember the depths from which we started.
Is African a slur in America? When she said African, I was like, come again? Because that's a compliment. I cannot shut up about being African. I love it so much. First thing people, where you from? Africa. West Africa. And then I say Gambia. This lady said African. I was like, okay, come again? That's not a drag. Then when she said dirty African, I was like, now you got me all kinds of messed up. But talk to me, guys. Is African a slur here? Do people get offended when people call them African?
I am an African. I owe my being to the hills and the valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land.
Being Black is not difficult. Being a Black woman is not difficult. These systems outside of us make things difficult because that's what they're designed to do. But inherently, us being who we are, it's not a bad thing. It's not a difficulty. It's not a burden by any means.
And I think it's just so important to always keep that front of mind. You are not to blame for how you're being seen. You just have to show up as yourself.
This man was 16 when police in apartheid South Africa opened fire on protesting Black students and killed hundreds of people. Seth Masibuko helped organize the 1976 Soweto uprising against unequal education. The protest was credited with helping end apartheid, but almost 50 years later, rights groups say South Africa still has one of the most unequal education systems in the world.
Apartheid is gone, that much I can tell you. What apartheid was doing still remains.
Can Black people be racist? It's a question that sparks intense arguments online and in real life. Some people say yes, anyone can discriminate. Others argue absolutely not. Racism is rooted in power, and globally, that power has never been in Black hands.
His name is Gomes de Zurara. Portuguese man, wrote a book in the 1450s in which he did something that no one had ever done before, according to Dr. Kendi. He lumped together all of the people of Africa, vast, diverse continent, and he described them as a distinct group, inferior and beastly. Never mind that in that pre-colonial time, some of the most sophisticated cultures in the world were in Africa. Why would this guy make this claim? Turns out it helps to follow the money. First of all, Zurara was hired to write that book by the Portuguese king. And just a few years before, slave traders, here we go, slave traders tied to the Portuguese crown had effectively pioneered the Atlantic slave trade. They were the first Europeans to sail directly to sub-Saharan Africa to kidnap and enslave African people. So it was suddenly really helpful to have a story about the inferiority of African people to justify this new trade. And with the stroke of a pen, Zurara invented both blackness and whiteness because he basically created the notion of blackness through this description of Africans. And as Dr. Kendi says, blackness has no meaning without whiteness. Other European countries followed the Portuguese lead in looking to Africa for human property and free labor, and in adopting this fiction about the inferiority of African people. I found this clarifying. Racism didn't start with a misunderstanding, it started with a lie.
Why is it only now, when justice and progress are finally being demanded, that some people claim that they are suddenly the victims of racism.
They love making up words to confuse black people. Reverse racism. What in the hell is reverse racism? In order for reverse racism to exist, that means the black man and woman have to be able to invade the institutions that white people control, take them over, okay, and then reverse the system of disproportionality, bias, discrimination, and racism. We have to invade the criminal justice system. We have to invade the medical system. We have to invade the economic system. We have to invade the legal system. We have to invade the political system. We have to invade the media system. We have to take it over, and then we have to flip the roles so that we are in control, and now we can systematically oppress white folk.
Put quite simply, prejudice is an attitude. Racism is an institution. So when someone says, a black person called me a name, that's racism. They're missing the foundation. Where is the systemic power behind it?
Every white South African is racist. Every single one. Including you. Including me. We were born into a racist country, raised by racist systems, taught by racist textbooks, and disciplined by racist norms. Unless you've been consciously deprogrammed, that requires pain, effort, and education, you are still operating from a racist framework. Having black friends doesn't erase your racism. Voting for black politicians, no. Sleeping with someone of another race? Ha! Still racist. Whiteness isn't just calling someone a slur. It's the silent belief that whiteness is neutral and everything else is different. I don't see color while bleaching your hair and contouring your face. You see color just fine. You just don't want to deal with what it means. The entire education system would collapse overnight if we taught the truth. Apartheid wasn't resolved and whiteness is still centered.
One insult does not outweigh centuries of oppression backed by governments, militaries, police, banks, and global economic systems. To understand this power imbalance, we must look at history not as a list of events, but as a continuous structure shaping our present. Slavery did not just happen. That would be a lie. It was built by the Western economies that still dominate the world today. Colonialism didn't just take land. It extracted wealth and left African nations underdeveloped by design. Jim Crow and apartheid did not just separate people. They robbed black communities of their generational wealth and political power. The war on drugs wasn't just a crime policy. It disproportionately targeted black neighborhoods, feeding the prison industrial complex, incidentally predominantly owned by white people.
African Americans know that modern policing traces directly to slave patrols. That is the first example of policing in our country. Law enforcement, usually working class guys, set up by rich people to keep other working class black and brown folks in line, right? Sort of similar, isn't it? Because rich folks are never cops, just like rich folks are never soldiers, right? Rich folks get poor people and working class people to do their dirty work for them. So you put some folks on a slave patrol to keep black folks in line. Then later on, it's cops who you have enforce the black codes, which were passed after slavery was abolished, to keep black folks in line. Then it's cops who are the ones enforce segregation to keep black folks in line. It's cops who pull protesters off of stools in the South during the sit-in movement to keep black folks in line. It's cops who enforce the war on drugs, which I beg to remind you is not a war on drugs. And this we know for a couple of reasons. Number one, the data is very clear. White folks use drugs, sell drugs, possess drugs every bit as often as black folks do. contrary to stereotype. Black folks do not use drugs more, they do not deal drugs more, they do not possess drugs more, but they are the ones who get arrested. 4 times as likely to be arrested for weed than white folks, even though use of marijuana is roughly identical between these groups.
So when we ask, can black people be racist? We must ask, who built this system? Who benefits from this system? And finally, who controls this system? This statement can't be denied. The present is shaped by the past. He who does not know his history is condemned to repeat it. Equality feels like oppression when you are accustomed to privilege. That's when we start hearing phrases like, affirmative action discriminates against white people. Why is there a Black History Month? Talking about racism is racism. I'm being attacked for being white. This is power performing innocence. It's a strategy. If the oppressor claims to be the victim, then the oppressed become the aggressor. It slows progress, it derails accountability, and it recenters white feelings over black survival. That's the trick. When people claim reverse racism, what they're really saying is, stop asking for justice, stop challenging the system, stop changing the imbalance that benefits me. Arguments about reverse racism are not about fairness. They're about protecting the world order. And let's be clear, the battle for equity is not an attack. Liberation is not revenge. Black freedom does not threaten white existence, only white supremacy. Oppression doesn't just flip because injustice is finally named. A rising tide does not drown those who already sit on a boat. So, can black people be racist? Without institutional power? Without systems that are built in their favor? The simple answer is no. Black people can be prejudiced. They can be biased. They can be wrong. But they did not build, they did not control, and they do not benefit from a global structure of racial dominance. Instead of debating definitions, we should be asking, what are we doing to dismantle the system that continues to harm black lives today? Because justice must not feel like a threat. It should feel like the world finally balancing. Before I forget, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.